Surprise, surprise. I have Dannie D on the TikTok famous podcast, and you are just going to fall in love with him because I just can't get enough. His videos are usually 7 seconds, but finally he's doing them 1 minute long, and he's here today on a longer format. So stay with us.
You're listening to the TikTok Famous Podcast, where viral fame meets raw reality. Join your host, Meredith Willits, as she dives deep with your favorite creators to uncover the real stories behind the scroll, the highs, the lows, the algorithm chaos, and everything in between. This is not your average interview. This is the TikTok Famous Podcast.
Dannie D is in the house. Thank you so much for being here with me and just all the things. I'm so excited.
Of course. Happy to be here.
So I found you, and this is going to sound crazy, but I found you with your leg up in the air, thinking, surprise, surprise. Where in the world did you come up with that?
I wish I had like a amazing story, an amazing background for that. I feel like I should just come up with one and just like spew it out there. But I was literally laying in the bed, and a notification came on my phone about the president of France suing Elon Musk. And then the song popped in my head, and so I just did my leg extension over and then use a song to it. And from that moment on, like,
a star was born.
Yeah.
A star was born. And you just have a way of very short, very sweet, one sentence encapsulating a moment that we're dealing with in this country, or in this world, actually. 99.9% of the time about politics.
Yeah.
Unapologetically, not fearlessly, courageously, because we'll talk about that later. Yeah. Expressing what is going on from your perspective, your life experience. And you do it in one sentence with this like huge grin on your face with your leg over your head. Because if you don't know Dannie D, he was one of 25 dancers to be named Dancers to Watch in America by Dance Magazine. So not only is he politically inspired, he has been dancing or was dancing for decades. Yeah. Like born and bred, trained from like how long? When did you start dancing?
So technically, I started dancing when I was a little child. And my family would say that I would run around just like dancing around, in the household and everything. And I remember watching this TV show, Fame, on TV. Yeah. And I saw Anthony Jean Ray on there, and I was like, I totally got to be that guy. And then I didn't realize what was actually going on until I saw the Alvin Ailey American Dance Theater on TV. And I was like, oh, they're like actual dancers with technique, and they look like me. So at that point, I had switched my idea. I was going to be an accountant, by the way, at 3 years old. Yes, that was my job title. I was an accountant.
Numbers were
yes, at that point. That's exactly what I would say. People are like, you don't know what an accountant is. I was like, no, it's a person who works with numbers. And they were like, okay, well, you do know what an accountant is. I was like, yes, I do. So from that day on, I knew that I was going to be a professional dancer.
Wow. And so what got you into, or how long, well, as I'm sitting here talking to you, dancing is storytelling. I mean, really, to be honest, dancing is a form of storytelling. When did you start to realize that you had a story to tell and that it was important to you for it to come out of your mouth, and why that was, important?
Yeah, so I really didn't get into politics until the first time Trump was running for office. And I wanted to see what was behind the curtain. And we've been living in this world, or at least in this country, where we have not really understood what was happening in politics. We're just like, oh yeah, things are great or things are bad. It was this sort of like polarized way of thinking. It's like,
Mhm.
One political party comes into office, things are bad. One political party comes in the office, things are good. But like, why weren't we really figuring out what was going on? So I took it upon myself to really start to do a little bit more investigating behind the scenes to figure out like why it is I'm not enjoying one party versus the other party. I'm an identified Democrat. I feel like I'm more of a moderate Democrat than anything else, and so I do share some views just based off of my religious background that are a little bit more conservative. But I just like to say that I'm a liberal because it makes the MAGA man.
The MAGA man. The MAGA man. Beep, beep, doo-doo-doo.
Yeah.
MAGA man. I just made that up. Just go ahead and,
That's
trademark
great.
that.
I love it.
So was there any part of your childhood, your upbringing, your time in New York City, your time in LA, or just being a Black man in America, was there anything that you believed like shaped your voice, or your experience to go, okay, instead of just voting, I feel like my voice needs to be heard, and I could actually make a difference.
Yeah, so I am a social worker. That's my current job at this point in time, as a social worker, and I'm an LCSW. And so one of the things that I notice is when I'm going into different spaces, I'm the one of the few or the only person who looks like me in this space. And so I would get a lot of questions. And initially, I was bothered by it, and I was like, "Y'all should know this stuff, because you're a
And who
social
who was
worker."
asking the questions, and what kind of questions were you getting?
So these are people, so other social workers.
Okay.
Mainly, I'm in predominantly white spaces with white females. So white female spaces essentially are a lot of what's going on in the social work field, or the environments that I were in, I would just say.
Yeah.
So I was getting a lot of questions just about like Black people, people who are on the LGBT spectrum, just my experiences in general. A lot of the stuff that is involved in what the DI initiatives are now. Those are the questions that I was getting prior to a lot of the stuff coming into play. And so I knew for myself, I was going to be a representative of multiple communities. And so instead of me being offended by it, it was an opportunity for me to provide teachable moments for people and to provide them with an understanding of what, a Black male in the LGBT spectrum actually represents, or how we represent.
Did you feel, because like for myself, right? Like, do you feel in the beginning of creating on social media, did you feel like you finally had a place to put your voice, and like, I don't know, like like a lot of the people that I've talked to on this podcast, maybe we weren't listened to, either because, being Gen X, or having a certain kind of childhood, like seen and not heard, go over there, whatever, or just being like an extroverted introvert.
Mm.
Do you feel like social media, especially TikTok, gave you a place to kind of put all of these ideas and feelings and kind of focus them into a positive?
Yeah, it's a weird feeling for me because I never really wanted any sort of fame, but I also wanted people to listen to me. So it's like it was like, dude, you can't have both. So
Yeah.
it's like I wanted people to listen to me, but I had to get to a certain clout, for people to go, oh, okay, well, yeah, we're gonna listen to this guy because he kind of knows what he's talking about. And so yes, I do find it helpful to have this flat platform to be able to provide the information that I was providing before.
Yeah.
I just didn't have, like I said earlier, the clout, or the following to be able to provide me with the opportunity to spread my message to a wider spectrum.
have you made a video or said something where you were like it grew legs? Like, granted, some shit just goes viral
Yeah.
and you're like, what? And then some stuff you're like, that's brilliant. It's gonna
Right.
go places, and it just like falls, and you're like, damn it, I have to re-release it. Um, was there anything that you put out there, or like when the leg videos started to like take off? Because I'm assuming that really took
Yeah.
like hold of your, exponential. You have a following right now of 713,000 just on TikTok alone. Where you were like, oh, how like people like that one, like that. I need to make more of that content.
Yeah, that and that's what I've been told. That's what that's what I heard, through the grapevine about like TikTok and TikTok in particular. If you have something that is successful, then you keep sort of recreating that in a different way, changing the format, or not the format, but changing like the wording on there. So that's what I did, and I just continue to figure out how to utilize my background as a dancer, and then also my political views as well too, and just combining those two things to keep spreading my message to people.
What would you say, speaking about your message, what would you say? Well, first of all, who's your target audience? Is it MAGA? Is it other Democrats? Is it just education? Like, I mean, because your leg and smile are sassy. I mean, you're drawing some people in. You're like kind of like, surprise, surprise. Like, here we are. It's very kind of pokey, right? You're
Yeah,
poking the bear a little bit.
yeah.
So who would you say is your audience? Or are you just giving people like me, like, oh, that was a good one. I'll take that with me later on today. Like, who are you talking to?
I mean, I feel like all of the above. I feel like every person that you mention is my target audience. Like I really my whole point initially for the surprise was to debunk a lot of the misinformation, lies. I'm just going to call it what it is. That happens on the right. That is really one of uh, my things. But the word just flooded in my head what I wanted to say. But that it just grinds my gear. Like the lying part for me. I was actually on a live last night on TikTok, and I removed somebody from the live because they just told like a bull-faced lie. They were like, you just said this, and I'm like, I literally did not just say that.
Yeah.
Because the lying for me, I just do not understand. It's like you can play this game, and continue to play this as long as you are providing people with some transparency.
Yeah.
And that's all that for me I'm requesting is transparency, because at that point I know how to continue and to progress forward.
Yeah, I think like there's so many accounts right now that are trying like screaming from the rooftops like this is happening. Like I put a video out recently um about how they were either defunding or decreasing the investment of funding for cancer and Alzheimer's research. And everyone, you're lying. Just show me where this happened. You're
Yeah.
lying. This is fraud. And the hard part for me is when they came up with fake news. Brilliant, by the way.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Nothing has been more powerful in disinformation than the words fake news. Because you could say it towards anything and it just rolls. So for me, I think it makes like I have a physical response because it's so sad to me that we have come to a place where facts are debatable
Mm-hmm.
and people aren't using the very easy resources of like look up the House bill, look up the executive order, look it up. Like you can literally see it in there, like the Save Act, where you have to have, and I put this out there, I'm like, married women who have changed their name, like myself,
Mm-hmm.
you're going to need to figure out a way to register to vote. And I got either good, this is what we voted for, which we're happy about that,
Right.
or this is a lie. This is misinformation. And I'm like putting in the comments, I'm like, no, check the Save Act, right?
Yeah.
And I get a visceral sadness
Mm.
You know, I get sad because I feel like we're moving farther and farther away from each other. Um, and you know, I don't know if it's the real world or if it's just online, or I don't even know what it is, but when we're sitting here trying to have a conversation and we're basically like, you know, we're not even in the same stratosphere. Like, where are you at physically and mentally and spiritually on a daily basis? Because this is not easy work.
Yeah, I for me, since I do what I do, I understand how to listen to another person's perspective and not allow it to deter me from continuing to try to have a relationship with that person. And back in the day, this is what bipartisanship looked like, where you had a Republican and you had a Democrat who disagreed on something, and then that was it. The fake news, this is a lie, I'm going to take you down, I'm going to sue you, all of that stuff wasn't even a thing because, like, I don't have to agree with the person. I don't have to, because there's different parts for people. There are different parts of people. And this particular part, I don't agree with. That's not the whole person.
Yeah.
You know? So I don't have to agree with that particular part, but that doesn't mean that I'm going to dismiss this person from my life completely. Now, there are
Yeah.
certain aspects and certain things that people agree with that I'm like, we cannot be friends,
Right.
in any way, shape, or form. But politically, I'm like, I've had Republican friends in the past. I had Republican friends in the past, and we disagreed on certain things, and we would go, okay, well, I agree to disagree. We left it where it was, and we went to go have lunch.
Well, I mean, honestly, most of my friends are Republicans. You know, like where I live, that's who I'm surrounded with, and those are the people that I love. Um, and it's like it's sad that we can't. I mean, we were taught. I mean, I was taught you don't talk about religion, you don't talk about politics, and you kind of have to go back to that.
Yeah.
But I do feel it was funny because my sister, she's always followed me on Instagram and Facebook, which is a totally different planet.
Yeah.
Like the fact that I'm talking about politics right now and I know this is going into Facebook is crazy to me because I don't talk about this stuff. Like I am a different person on TikTok than I am on Instagram and Facebook. Like those are two totally different lives for me. And so my sister just got on TikTok and she called me. She goes, I just want to let you know that you're getting a little political. And I go, I know it's TikTok. I do that over there. And she's like, oh, so your whole self is on TikTok? I'm like, yes, my whole self is on TikTok. I don't compartmentalize. Have you found that you compartmentalize or are you putting everything on both?
I put everything on both. My initial, like I said, I was initially had a huge following on Instagram, and as soon as I switched over to the political content, like people were saying, like, "Oh, we didn't know that you were going to be posting stuff like this," or I don't want to be your follower anymore because like A, B, and C, and I'm like, okay, well, this is a part of who I am. I am a black male, on the LGBT spectrum, surviving in America. Like I have to be honest about what's really going on here. And if you can't handle that, and you can't handle that part of me, which is a major part of me, then you shouldn't be following me because I am going to speak up about things that affect me and my communities, I should say. I'm going to speak up about that, every single day. I'm going to fight for the marginalized community every single day. I'm going to fight for due process every single day. I'm going to fight for the overall human rights every single day.
And I think that's so courageous because, as you're saying, you had a larger following on Instagram and you shut that down because why? You were,
Yeah, I mean, I shut it down because of what was going on with Meta in general. I was unable to support, and I had an X as well too. I had a huge following on Twitter. I don't know why I said X, but Twitter. And I shut it down because it was like I cannot support fascism. Bottom line, I can't do it, and I won't do it.
And did you feel like you were putting your life in danger by being you on that platform at that time?
Yeah, I was definitely getting a lot of threat. I was getting more threats on Twitter, and then some on Instagram. I actually went at one point in time on Instagram. I just had to set my account to private, and just shoot out stuff to my people. And then I'm going, like we talked about earlier, like I'm not really being my authentic self because I want my messaging to get out to everybody, so that everybody can hear my messaging. And for a moment, I was a little concerned. I won't say that I was afraid because I've never been afraid of anything in my life. But I was a little concerned about my safety, posting what I post. And then I realized I'm like, but what am I afraid of? I'm being my true authentic self, and I'm providing actual information. I know it's hard for a lot of people on the right to, really understand facts and science, but those are the things there. I mean, I don't know how to, break it down any further, but like, this is the truth and this is what's real. Yeah.
I think for creators, especially when we get bigger, right? When your following becomes like a couple 100,000, or millions, sometimes it is scary to start speaking your truth because, a lot of people, this is their bread and butter by way of just like views, or they sometimes sell stuff.
Mhm.
And it is scary to speak up about certain topics because you're could be cutting off some of your income. You could be alienating people. I personally started out creating, um, and then wanted to get not necessarily political, but wanted to get socially right, I guess is
Mm.
the best way to put it. And there was this huge kind of cognitive dissonance where I was like, but if I talk about that, then I'm going to alienate people and then they won't hear my message. And then we'll be even like, there was all of this kind of, should I say it? Shouldn't I say it? Is there a way to say it that doesn't piss people off? Like, how do I ride the line? And then I just kept thinking of like Jesus, where you're like, if you're gray, then he's going to spit me out of his mouth. Like I'm like, you have to stand up for something, right? Or you'll fall for
Yeah.
everything. Like, thanks,
Yes.
Katy Perry for that one. So yeah, like I think it does get difficult because you want to engage as many people as possible and maybe drop seeds, but at the same time, like then are you beige, right? Then are you just kind of like this middle ground that doesn't do anything?
Yeah. I find that my audience knows when I'm going to talk about more of a serious topic, because they don't see the leg.
The leg does not the leg does not extend.
Yes, I actually made a bit of a, for lack of a better term, a threat about not putting my leg up anymore. It was based off of the Wisconsin election for the Supreme Court. I was like, I'm telling you right now, Wisconsin, if you don't make sure that this happens, then this leg is not going up
Oh
anymore.
my god, that's hysterical. You're tempting the powers that be
Yes.
to,
People,
to not be able to see it again. That's
yes.
freaking awesome.
The comments were hilarious as well too. They were like, "You guys better get it together because we need the leg. We need the leg."
We need the damn leg.
Yeah.
So, you work with white women primarily in the space, this very professional space of social work where you're probably seeing. I had a great conversation the other day, on a bus ride home from a kids event, with an OBGYN sitting next to me for 2 hours. And we got to go really deep into what is going on as an OBGYN in a hospital setting and what she is seeing. We're about 30 minutes away from Indiana, and the scary shit that she is seeing coming in over the border to us here in Illinois. What would you say you're learning probably in real time as a social worker that is tending to, maybe, is it spilling into your social media? Is it spilling into your message? Is it a catalyst for your message even more so than someone that's not seeing the day to day?
No, I really, and I think we talked about the compartmentalizing piece a little bit. So I really compartmentalize and separate my work from what I do on social media. And I feel like that's really important, particularly because of the clientele that I work with. So I want to make sure that I am doing what I'm doing on social media and then doing what I do at work, and really kind of separating, those things. And so a lot of the things that I do at work doesn't really align with what I'm saying politically. So it really wouldn't make any sense for me to have that sort of crossover, except for what I mentioned earlier about just teachable moments. If people have questions about, you know, me, and I know that again, I'm going to be a representative of Black male community and also the LGBT spectrum as well too, I can answer questions based off of my experience. And I always preface it with saying that this is my experience. I cannot fully represent every single person, but I can make sure that I'm representing a Black, you know, male on the LGBT spectrum.
How do you feel? Because when I started doing some work on my racism, just growing up, um, and learning about going to a person of color, and how that is extra work for them. Buy a book, watch a video, it's
Mhm.
out there. How do you feel when people ask you questions as if you're like this walking encyclopedia? Does it exhaust you? Does it excite you? Do you feel it's an honor? Do you feel like, hey, here's a great book, go read that? How does that feel? Or is it because of the fact that you are an educator, I think probably through and through? How does that show itself in the workplace or out in the world?
Yeah, in general, I really like when people remain in a state of inquiry. It's really important to identify as a lifelong learner, because before, cultural competence was the topic, and then it was eventually changed because I'm like, how can you be competent about like someone's culture? Like that doesn't make any sense to me. Then it was changed to cultural humility, which makes a little bit more sense to me because I mean you're remaining humble and in the element of learning, because again you may be me, but there is another Black person sitting right next to me, who possibly could be on the LGBT spectrum or not on the LGBT spectrum. So it's like this person's experiences are going to provide you with a different context, about what's going on. So it's just really important. And I just feel like that is um, vital information for, especially right now in our society, because there's a lot of fear, a lot of phobias, a lot of isms, that are happening right now because people don't really understand. And there's that saying like people fear what they don't understand. And asking a question of a person that's standing right in front of you is very beneficial and is very crucial because like you are learning about that person versus these assumptions and biases and prejudices that we often have, and we all have them.
Yeah.
We all have biases and prejudices, but I would rather get information from that person standing in front of me so that I'm not leaning into that overgeneralization. Just because one person presents one way doesn't necessarily mean that I'm going to slump everybody in that category and go, okay, well, all white people are like this, you know?
I just actually had this conversation at a luncheon that I went to, and it was all white women. And they were talking something about racism or something like that. And I said, if you can't apply it to the whole group, or you can apply it to another group, you might be wrong. All white women are bad drivers. Well, are they? Or are other people also bad drivers?
Yeah.
And the one woman at the lunch went, can you do that again? Can you say that one more time? But it's so like, it's actually kind of exciting when you start breaking all of this stuff down. For me, I just had the real Slim Sherry on, and we were talking about basically, um, we're undoing our entire education.
Yeah.
We're undoing everything we ever learned in history, sociology, sometimes health class. I remember being taught as a youngster by a family member that I couldn't receive blood from a Black person
Mhm.
because our blood type, no matter what, even if it was the same, it was different.
Yeah.
And just, the leaders of the Black charge during, in history in America, and Harriet Tubman. We have a top five, and then that's where it ends.
Yeah.
And just like undoing that, it actually is super exciting, albeit sad, albeit challenging. But it is really interesting to challenge yourself. And so I mean, if you looked at who I follow, it's it's everybody. But I like even going into an interview like this. Last night I'm like, I really hope that he can trust me. Maybe he's looked at some of my other work that I've done, because I understand a Black man on the LGBT spectrum going on to a white woman's podcast. That can be weird. Like, you kind of like, I've had a couple people that I've asked, and they're like, all right, send me some of your stuff and I'll let you know if I feel comfortable coming on. But I think that we need to start challenging the ego attachment to
Yeah.
who we believe ourselves to be. And then as soon as we go, I'm nothing, then I think that we can move forward and learn from each other in a very beneficial way that actually grows the flower, instead of just like growing and then done. Like let the plant grow, let it spread around. Like you don't even realize how much potential you have as a human being when you do start pulling in. And I think that that's the sad thing that we're doing right now in this country, is we are trying, in my opinion, to make it one way that makes certain people comfortable.
Mhm.
And if it doesn't fall in alignment with that comfort level for those certain people, then we need to get rid of it. And I'm here to say that you're missing the boat completely, missing it completely.
Yeah. It's. I mean, there's so many things. It's like this country was like built with immigrants in mind. And so targeting one community, first of all, we're on stolen land, and we'll just say that. like we're all living on stolen land if you're not a part of the indigenous community, period.
Right. Period.
um, and so this country was founded based off of immigrants. So it's very interesting to me that the the immigrant community, is being targeted in the way that they're being targeted right now. And this is a litmus test, because this starts with one particular group of people because of the legal status. And then
Yeah.
it's going to transition over to other groups of people as well too. It's people that they don't like. As you mentioned earlier, people that don't fit the mold of what they're trying to turn America into, which is a white nationalist Christian male um, community, our country. And it's not going to work. I really am, like, I'm sitting back a little bit and watching like what's going on,
Yeah.
and it's not going to work. There's no way that what they're doing is going to continue to make sense to the larger population of this country, which is why there are multiple protests, which is why these town halls in these ruby red counties and cities and states are pushing back. People are literally saying, we do not want a king. There are no kings in America. They don't want autocracy. They don't want anything that's happening right now. Everyone wanted, we all wanted a good economy, lower groceries, lower eggs, lower gas prices. Everybody united on that front. One person focused on that, which was genius, focused on that. The other person didn't focus on that.
Yeah.
And because that other person didn't focus on that, then people are falling into line with what's going on over here. Yes. He based all of his things and getting people emotionally charged. I always talk about like the tier of the Republicans. There's MAGA base, there are Republicans, and then there are MAGA Republicans. The MAGA base were never heard. When you are wanting to build a community, and you see people who are not listening to you, that community is going to latch on to someone who is actually listening and hearing and seeing what he was saying to them. He spoke directly to them. This is
I think
something.
the big thing as you're talking, I think the big problem is they're still talking about the eggs. They're
Yep.
not talking about the things that you and I are talking about.
Right.
That stuff's staying hidden, or being lied about. Like the one guy, and I'm not going to remember his name, of course, but that the Supreme Court said you absolutely have to be a part of bringing him back
Yep.
into the
Kimora
country.
Abrego. Yeah.
Thank
Kimora
you.
Abrego Garcia. Yeah.
Thank you. And so then okay, but then the news that they're listening to, because I do believe the planet's been split in half, is
Oh, for
one
sure.
news and then the other news
For
is
sure.
he's got tattoos on his finger.
Yeah.
And so when Trump's speaking about the tattoos on his finger, his followers are like, what do you want us to do? We're getting rid of criminals. We're doing the right thing. And I do believe beyond a shadow of a doubt that there is a good majority of people that are following this administration that believe that the right thing is being handled.
Good point.
Now, do they believe that all should have due process, and do they understand the Constitution affords every single human being that has their feet on American soil by way of the Constitution is afforded due process? No, because I've had people argue with me up one side and down the other that says, no, American citizens get due process. I'm like, no, if your feet are touching the planet, the
Humans.
earth in America, you are afforded due process. And so I do get pushback on that, those itty bitty facts that you can Google.
Yeah.
But I do believe that the majority, let's go 80, 90% even, don't understand what's actually happening because they're
Correct.
still talking about eggs. They're still talking about gang members. They're still talking about the things that they believe are the right thing. Like, hey, Doge is getting rid of fraud. Why don't you want that?
Right.
Doge is getting rid of criminals. Why don't you want that, Meredith? Why don't you want that, Danny? This is a good thing. And I just look and I go,
Yeah, that's not happening. And that's a part where that's the delusion that kicks in. And that is the cultist mindset that kicks in as well too. And this is what I was saying about him emotionally charging them to think what he's saying is correct.
yeah,
In one of his rallies, closer to the end, he literally said to his base, I don't care about you. I just want your vote. And they cheered.
yeah,
And I liken that to like an animal, in a sense. And so when you're talking to an animal and you're like, oh, go give, oh, baby, blah, 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 my voice tone doesn't change, but I could be saying some horrific things to that animal, but the animal's going to be like, oh my gosh, oh, I really love it because of my tone.
yeah,
Yes. If I say, you're a really good doggy, with a stern tone, it doesn't matter. The tone is what's going. And so that charges their emotions. And this is what they're basing their decisions off of. It's all emotional reasoning at this point in time. If I feel this way, then it's true. Yes. He leaned into the hatred piece of it. Yes. Yeah. Lean into the hatred piece of it. So if I feel this way, then this is true. And that's not how that works, because facts are fleeting. Feelings are fleeting. Yeah. Feelings are fleeting, and when your feelings are gone, and you made that decision based off of that feeling, and you come out on the other side, you're typically like, I probably should have done that. Which is why a lot of these people, these are the Republicans, not the base, not the MAGA Republicans. The Republicans are having that voters' remorse.
Yeah, the FAFOs out there that are coming through. Well, I mean, that unfortunately is reality, is that until it knocks on your door, yes. Which I have had a couple friends that it's knocked on their door, yes. And because they have the financial means, they've gotten themselves out of it. Mm-hmm. The find out part. Yeah. And a lot of people, I think that I know anyways, they voted 99.9% of the vote for him was based purely on financials, like purely on taxes, purely on how that would affect them financially.
Yeah.
And, it's great to save money on your taxes, but when your business can't import the goods to make your item, or that no one else has any money to spend on your business, that's when we're right. Like when I'm watching these people talk about, like, I can't afford my inventory, I'm going out of business. If I go out of business, that my 20 employees go out of business. Like, this is going to start, we're going to start seeing, because of these China tariffs, where it's snowballing, and then more people are out of business, more people are out of jobs, more companies are going to go belly up because they're not importing things.
Right.
For me, I'm looking at these China tariffs, to me, are going to have the biggest ramifications for our country, of buying from us but also selling to us to make American made products for American made businesses. But we need, I saw the best one, like, these are oranges that are grown in the United States. However, the fertilizers from Canada, and the
Right.
bags that we're putting the oranges in are from China. And you know what I mean? And they're going through
Yeah.
to make this American made oranges. And I don't think that people are seeing the layers
Yes.
of what's going on here. And although a lot of my friends, of course, did not vote for very kind, wonderful people to be deported necessarily, I think they voted for, but I think when you don't vote for everybody, you vote for nobody.
Right. And the issue is they're trying to act like this he's the only president that's ever like handled immigration.
Yeah. I
Like,
mean, Obama
right,
deported
deported way
more.
more people, and this is his end game. Like, right, this it's such a childlike mentality because he's trying to beat Obama. This is what he's trying to do right now. He's like,
I think
Obama.
they all are, to be
Yeah,
honest.
everybody's trying to beat Obama. It's like Obama's like, I don't even care. Michelle's like, you're not running again ever again. Like, even if there was a third term, you're not doing it, Michelle. Michelle's like, no, we're done. Because
I
she didn't
wish.
even show up for it. She showed up for none of the things. She was like, I'm done. I
I'm
did what
done.
I need to do, and I'm done at this point. Um, and so and I always say, like, people tend to say that Black people are playing the victim, and that we're being loud and we're being ghetto and all of these other things. And the bottom line is, like, Black people have been saying this for centuries. And especially with this upcoming election, if you look at the trend, Black people were really pointing out Project 2025 and saying, this is a real thing. This is going to happen. And people are like, yeah, well, no, he said that he has nothing to do with Project 2025, where his name was mentioned, and I can't remember the exact number, but his name was mentioned in there multiple times. And I'm going, I don't understand how, again, facts and science are very difficult for the right to understand. And it just baffles my mind because, again, like, we were saying this from the very beginning. We were saying this during slavery. We were saying this during the civil rights movement. We were saying this to Black Lives Matter movement. We were saying, like, this, nothing has changed.
Yeah.
Nothing has changed. And for me, I'm like, I'm like, this needed to happen.
Yeah. No,
This
I made a video on that too. This is
it
where we're
needed
at.
it needed to happen because people were getting very comfortable about what was going on. We're 3 months in, and it's like it's hard for me to have empathy for people right now because I'm like, we're 3 months in, at this point, and I'm not talking about like people being deported and all the horrible things that are happening to innocent people. I'm mostly talking about people who were comfortable, people who are like, oh well, I didn't know. I didn't know you knew because, like, people were telling you, like, impoverished, people were telling you this stuff. It's in Project 2025. Like, all of these things were noted in all these things. And until Congress gets off of their butts, gets in there and gets inside that Constitution and starts to make the Constitution effective and beneficial for everyone who lives in this country, things will continue to be the same. There's no reason why Roe v. Wade was overturned. There should have been no reason why Roe v. Wade was overturned. Zero reason.
Wild.
That's comfortability. That's status quo.
Status quo. I mean, my dad's an attorney, he was a judge, worked in a prosecutor's office, and he told me, I remember like a decade ago, he's like, Meredith, they will beat this to death. It'll never get overturned. Never. We will never have our rights taken away from us like that. And here we are. But they use the it's back to the states. The wild thing to me is this should be afforded as a blanket to
Yes.
all across the country, regardless of what state you live in. You should be afforded protections. Protection should be national.
Yep.
Protection should be, if you want to have states that, in New Jersey, it's illegal to pump your own gas. Honestly, I think that should go across America. I am all for them pumping my gas for me. But
I miss it. I miss those days.
Me too. So bad. But a protection should be global, so to speak, right? It should be for everyone across the country. And it's weird to think that that's, education, protection of education, 504 plans, IEPs, those protections should be afforded nationally across the country. And, if you want to have like perks and this and that, or this kind of law and that, but being afforded a protection and the right to privacy, those are what Roe v. Wade, and to me, that's mind blowing that they got a Supreme Court, and why they didn't pack that Supreme Court, which, I've had I've had Beauty Mark on here, and he's a guy that bitches about both sides. And I'm about to have Mute the Media on here shortly, and he's a guy who's thinks that all of it's a pile of shit. And I watched your video recently where you're like, "Hi, we do have a playbook. It's called Project 2025. All we have to do is read it, and then we can get ahead of it, and then we can actually like get ahead of this nonsense and be ready," right? Like I watched your video about that. And also, Clinton was impeached for less, and we're sitting here with this nonsense. So for me, I'm like, listening to Mute the Media and listening to Beauty Mark and going, is this two sides of the same coin that nothing is happening? Like, we know what's coming. We know what he's doing. We're like, Kash Patel was just being interviewed the other day in Congress, and they're like, "Hey, your budget was due a week ago legally, and when are we expected?" And he's like, I don't have it. Well, no legally, you had to.
Yep. No big deal. Yep. No big deal.
And my video was yesterday was, we have built this entire political landscape on pleasantries and assumption of good. And now that we're in this weird place where people don't give a shit about pleasantries and the way things are supposed to be done, but this is the way we've always done it, and we have these people out there breaking the law and not showing up with the budget that was due last week, and not listening to 9 judges of the Supreme Court saying, bring them back. We don't know what to do with that.
Yep. And the solution is very easy, and it's very clear what the solution is. And at this point, the Republican Party can stop this if they had the desire to do so. They did it before. And I truly don't understand what they feel. Again, at this point, I don't care what you did. Because obviously there's some skeletons in the closet. Because they're afraid. I don't care what you did. Like, I really don't care what you did. And the majority of Americans do not care what you did. Just go in there and do the job. Yes? Impeach. Remove. That's what needs to happen at this point in time. Because, again, you have people from the top down who are saying, I'm not going to abide by the rules. They've already defied SCOTUS. SCOTUS is a top judicial branch in the country. They've already defied SCOTUS. So like, they're already saying to your face, they're not going to abide by the law. So go in there, do your job, get them out. We'll have discussions later. Like we will have discussions later, and they could be viewed. They will go down in history as like the biggest heroes in the entire this decade.
Yeah.
Or this century.
Yeah. And I remember people when I was a kid, my dad, again, was a defense attorney. And I remember like third grade, he was defending a rapist or something like that. And I remember being a kid and everyone going, how does your dad do that? And I went home, panicked because I don't have an answer at third grade. And I'm like, how does dad do this? And my mom, said like, look, everybody hates defense attorneys until they need one. And when their dad or mom needs one, or they get in trouble, or their cousin or somebody gets arrested, they're going to want to call someone like your dad. And I went, thank you. And then I went back to school the next day, and I was, I had my answer with my toolbox of answers. And as I'm watching these ideas of deporting U.S. citizens, I don't even know if that's the right word, deporting. I don't think you can deport a citizen from its own country. I don't putting in humans in concentration camps. I don't know what it is. In other countries.
Yeah.
Happening. But it's all fun and games until it's you.
Yes.
It's cute until you need to be, go through, have due process. And that's the problem is that eventually here we're going to be, if not 1 degree away from these types of situations, where it's going to be us. And, that's the poem, and then they came for you. And we're seeing that. And that's the FAFO, like the farmers that voted for him, the military that voted for him. And now their stuff's being cut, which I'm sure I'm going to have people on this video telling me that I'm a liar, that the VA is not being cut, even though I have people, messaging me weekly saying I can get into my therapist once a year now. If that, my therapist is fired. Now there's 3 therapists for 400 people through the VA. And, and now they're coming for the veterans. They're coming for the farmers. They're coming for normal citizens. They're coming for colleges. They're coming for law firms that prosecuted him or had something to do with the prosecution of Donald Trump. They're coming for people that are teaching in universities across the country. They're coming for us. That's the us.
Yeah, it's a retribution chore, and that's what he said that he was going to do it. Like he said it. He said out of his mouth that this is what he was going to do.
Yeah.
And so, I just at this point, this is where we are.
Yeah, this is where we are. And so we stick our leg up in the air. I can't do it like you do, and we lay back on our couch or our bed with a big smile on our face, and surprise, surprise, this is where we're at, even though there was a manual for it.
Yes, there was a big old 900-page manual for it, and it's still there.
Still there.
So Democrats, do the thing. I have a video on TikTok. You can go watch it. Just get up there, get ahead of it, because the offense wins, not the defense.
Yeah,
very cute. It's very cute. It's seeing Marjorie Taylor Greene being taken down in these committee meetings. That's really cute and it's very funny, but like, get ahead of it.
Get ahead of it. We have, they always said, like, I don't know how to raise my kids. There's no manual. There's an actual manual for this.
There is. There's an actual manual for this. Yeah.
Well, I so support everything that you're doing. You go on live all the time. I catch you live. So not only are you doing 7-second videos that are drawing us all in and giving us kind of just a space to commune with you, with your leg up, with a smile on your face, and like this just kind of FA moment. It's also you're educating people inside of the space of truth and conversation and education about so many different things. And I myself love you and appreciate you. You are on Instagram, you're on YouTube, you're on TikTok, doing dancing and educating and going live and all the things. So I so appreciate you. I fell in love with you the first time I saw that foot up, and I have been following and laughing and smiling and FAFOing around with you. So thank you for all you're doing.
Of course, I am happy to be able to provide a little bit of levity in all what's going on. It's like people go, oh, but the words are terrible, but like we enjoy watching you move or watching your leg go up. Because I want to make sure that I'm providing as much context as possible with a little less of what my boy Aaron Parnas does. With breaking news, you're like, oh my gosh, you get the visceral response with the breaking news.
He's a whiz. I know every time I see his face, I'm like, oh God.
What's happening now?
What's happening now? Breaking news. It's like, oh, Aaron. That poor bastard. He's aged 4 years and 3 months. That poor guy.
He's a baby too, and I'm like, yes, it's like, oh yeah, you could definitely tell. I was like, get some rest, boo boo, get some rest.
I know, right? As I'm sitting here ready to close the show, I'm thinking about how you were named one of the 25 dancers to watch in America, and I'm thinking about how you're still one of 25 dancers, or even the one that I want to watch in America, even if it's just on TikTok and social media, because you're still dancing, you're still bringing the joy, you're still bringing the information, you're still a storyteller by way of your moves or your mouth, and we appreciate you.
Yes, thank you. It's an interesting little tidbit about that. It's like I was named one of the 25 to watch, and then I retired like a couple of months later. So now,
did you?
Did you? The 25 dancers you're watching me now based off of what that was.
Well, I have a feeling with 700,000+ followers, there's more people watching you dance today than back then. So you're still one of the dancers to watch. So we appreciate you. Thanks so much for coming on the show. And I will see all of you guys here next week with a whole new guest that's TikTok famous. And subscribe, leave a review and a comment and stars and all that good stuff. I so appreciate you. Danny, I will see you on TikTok.
Yes, you will. Surprise, surprise.
Surprise, surprise.
Thanks for tuning in to the TikTok Famous Podcast with Meredith Willits. If you're loving the unfiltered stories and behind-the-scenes truths, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share the show. Until next time, let's get famous.